Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tim. Oh, that noise was the hello.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm glad we're on the same page here. So we talk about horror movies on this show. It's a horror movie podcast, and typically every week we watch a film, we talk about it. This episode's a bit different. I mean, it's the Octoberthon for a start, so we've got episodes coming out every single day. But one of the things that we like to do for the Octoberthon, or around the Octoberthon, I think it was November last year we did this, is we like to do a top 50 countdown of some kind related to horror films. And for some reason, we decided to do the top 50 worst horror movies this year. So we have both assembled a list of our 50 least favorite horror films. Yes.
So what was last year? Was it the top 80s horror
Top
movies?
50 of the 80s. So I mean,
Okay.
it stands to reason that maybe next year we'll go back to a decade and we'll do 70s or whatever. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, Tim's got ideas. Tim's going to like hit me with stuff after this. He's like, okay, no. How about we do top 50 horror movies that take place in the southeast? Why, Tim? Just because. All right. So the way this works, if you've not seen any of our countdowns before, we have both made our own list for this particular one, and Tim will give his number 50, then I'll give my number 50, and then we'll keep going like that. We'll alternate back and forth. This is part 1 of 2, which means this will go up to numbers 26. So this will be numbers 50 through 26 of each of our lists, and then we'll see you next week for the second half. So that is the plan. So I do want to put a disclaimer here first, though, Tim.
Okay.
I've got a disclaimer. So one of my big things whenever we do this usually is that we're doing our favorite movies of like a genre or a decade or whatever. And my rule typically is if I can't remember a movie well enough to explain it, then I shouldn't have it on the list because clearly I need to see it again, right? I couldn't do that with this one because I've intentionally let myself forget about a lot of these, and I'm not going to rewatch them for the sake of having them on a list like this. Are you kidding me? Are you crazy? There's a reason why they're on this list. So I'm not sure what I'm going to say about some of these. I really don't. I don't know what I'm going to say for half of these probably, but that'll be part of the fun, I suppose. Is we'll think of something.
No, I think that's fair, and I'm similar. In that there's a lot of stuff that I can't give you the finer details of the story, but I just know this freaking sucked. But yeah, I was gonna ask you, because obviously, you like making like a lot of lists and stuff. So I was curious about how you tackled this. Like, did you do a very mathematical approach where you just looked at like your previous reviews and what got the lowest scores, or was it more of like a feeling where you're like, oh yeah, I remember this or that, or did you have any rules in place like, oh, I can only use one entry from a franchise, or kind of things like that?
Well, I could definitely tell you that I can only use one entry from a franchise was not used. That was not a rule for me.
I tried to do that, but then there was some that was just like, I can't help but put this in here.
I can say that I mean my method's pretty straightforward in the sense that I keep track of what I watch, and I keep track of I have like a ranking of movies for every year that I've seen movies from. So essentially what I did is I just went down that list, that document, and went to the bottom chunk of each year and looked at the horror movies that were there and started filling it out. And I think this does veer a little bit towards modern movies because we see a lot of bad movies, especially the last few years of doing this podcast. I've seen more bad horror movies than I think I have the previous 20. So it does veer towards modern movies. But I was just sort of looking through that and then picking stuff out, and there was some stuff that was really bad, and I ended up with a list of like 70 or something movies, and I started just taking some out, and it wasn't necessarily the ones that I'd put at the bottom. It was some of the ones that was like, yeah, this was really bad, but do I feel like anger for it? Do I feel anger about this?
Sure.
Should it be mentioned versus this other thing, which I can maybe rant a little bit about, or I remember it more vividly, or whatever. So I don't know, but. This was hard. I've never done a worst list before, actually. I've never, at least not a top 50. I've never said, here's the 50 worst of anything. And so obviously it's just based on what we've seen. I can't hate a movie I've not seen. And so There you go. So it's purely subjective. Don't try to test as a definitive thing. There's one or two that might ruffle some feathers.
Mm.
One or two.
Mostly from me, I'm assuming.
I know there's one or two that make ruffle feathers from everyone. Actually, there's one in
Okay,
particular I'm looking at right now, and I'm thinking, that looks like it might piss a lot of people off. But
interesting.
uh,
Okay.
but we'll see. We'll see. So I guess without further ado, we will dive in, and we'll start with number 50 from Tim.
Okay, so this one actually is probably going to be a little controversial. Originally, I had it at my number one, and then I switched it. And the
Wait,
reason why,
wait, it was your number one,
yeah,
and now it's your number 50.
yes, and well, here's the reason for it. And you actually just, mentioned it. I don't know if I've ever seen this whole movie, and also. I might have seen it like back in the day when I was getting into things and trying to see stuff, especially stuff that's like kind of forbidden. And actually I think there are quite a number of people that really really like this movie. And once I say it though, you'll see why it's on this list. I don't know if do you have any guesses or is that can you
no
maybe
guesses.
think of why? Okay, it's Cannibal Holocaust.
Okay.
So obviously the big reason why it's on this list, and this might maybe feel like people might call this out as being cheap or something, but it's not the movie itself, but it's because of the animal cruelty that was involved in it. So originally that's why it was my number one because it's just I hate that. I'm a big animal lover, and it makes me sad to think about. And I'm sure there's probably tons of other movies that have animal abuse in them that I don't realize. But this is probably one of the big, really prominent ones. And it sucks. And I think I have seen parts of it. I'm not sure if I've ever seen like the movie from start to finish though. And I have heard people say like, oh no, like yeah, the animal cruelty sucks, but still a really good movie. You should watch just because of that. And like I don't care if it's the best movie in the world. I don't think I can ever actually do it.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I probably will watch the movie at some point, but I will be watching the director's cut, because the director actually admitted later on that he regretted all that, and actually did a new cut of the movie that cut every single piece of footage that had anything of that in it. So.
I mean, maybe I can get behind that, and at least he admits that. That is pretty cool of him. But yeah, it's still such a bummer to think about. And then
it's the sort of thing where I hear that, and I you'd expect that to be like a fan edit, like a fan did that to like give like the animal cruelty free version, but no, the director himself did it, and it's on some of the versions you have the choice of that cut.
That's I like that a lot, and that's cool because I feel like especially nowadays when someone does something shitty, they just kind of double down on it. A lot of people admit that's wrong, so that is pretty cool of them. And but yeah, I mean, I hate that so much though. That's why originally it was my number one, and then when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, since I haven't really like seen the whole movie, like, and since it's just kind of this one aspect of it, I still want it represented on the list because of that thing, but I put that down here.
I'm glad you pushed it to 50 because I feel like you're probably going to get enough shitty comments about how this invalidates your whole list that it's a movie you've not seen all of. I think if you put that at number one, there'll be riots in the comments. So that is fair. My number 50 is one that we have covered on Streams After Midnight. And actually, do you know what I hear about this list is that all the ones we haven't done on streams, I know that everyone's going to be like, yes, you're going to have to do them in the future now. We have to feel the hate.
The crypt is just going to like explode.
I know. Yes, if you're a $5 Patreon up, you can submit movies to the crypt that we'll do at some point. It's like a to-do list that we'll pick from time to time. Anyway, my number 50 is The Howling Five, The Rebirth.
Yeah.
This starts off not too terribly, but ultimately, once it gets into the castle, the actual horror scenes for the rest of the film are so dark that you can't see what's going on anytime any of the actual werewolf stuff is supposed to be happening, because it's just pitch black. You can't see anything. It is diabolical. Maybe it needs a nice Blu-ray remaster with some proper color timing and lighting and whatnot, but brightness and contrast need to be fixed. I don't know. but in its current incarnation, which is, let's be honest, is just a VHS kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
there's technically a DVD, but I'm fairly certain that DVD is just a copy of the VHS transfer slapped on a disc, rather than a proper, better master of it. So, but it, it's incomprehensible once it gets going. So, what else can I say?
I'll say probably the hardest thing about the list was just
Which
like
which Howling sequels to include?
yeah, I mean honestly like the list like probably could have just been Howling and Saw sequels. Like yeah, that's why like I was trying really hard to be like all right, I want to make sure to give it some variety. But
Sure.
yeah, that movie's really bad. So I'll agree with you on that one. All right, we ready for my 49?
We are ready. I'm ready and primed and pumped and able. What's going? What's next?
This actually this one like this hurt me to put this on here, but uh, I had to do it. 49 for me is Phantasm Ravager. I
Oh, it stings.
I love the Phantasm series. I think we covered it maybe what 2 years ago at this point, or was it last year?
No, it was last year. I think we were doing it around the same time as the
Okay.
Freddy and Freddy movies. It just finished much earlier because it was only
Yeah.
5 as opposed to 10 or whatever.
Yeah, and I saw the premiere of this movie at Beyond Fest when it came out, and it was the first Phantasm's like probably one of my favorite horror movies of all time. The sequels, I think, there's diminishing quality the further down you go, but I think most of them are still surprisingly really good and a lot of fun.
I think
And this one,
four's a little rough, but like 2 and 3 are both really watchable and solid.
yeah, and yeah, like 4 is definitely down there, but I think it is still watchable. This I have a lot of problems with. I mean the story sucks, the special effects are bad, like a lot of the acting isn't great. And then unfortunately, the tall man passed away before Angus Scrim before they could finish it. So even the scenes with him, like I still love him, but I mean him and Reggie are both like looking really old. It's kind of hard to watch, and it doesn't even feel like a horror movie at this point. It's like a weird sci-fi action movie. It's I I wish I could like this more, but I really don't. And it was such a bummer when I saw it.
It's one of those ones where you're watching it and it's a little embarrassing. Like you wish they'd just
Yeah,
never done it. They wish they just if you couldn't have done it in the first like few years after Oblivion, where
yeah.
you could have really sort of paid off that cliffhanger. Um, yeah, shouldn't have done it.
Like I mean, one of the fun things about a franchise is that you kind of love it, like warts and all. But yeah,
Mhm.
this is like one of the few ones where yeah, probably would have been better if they just didn't make it.
Mhm. It's a shame. It's a shame. My number 49 is a little Wes Craven film by the name
Uh
of
oh,
Cursed.
curse.
Christina Ricci, Joshua Jackson. Actually, isn't it? What's his face? Isn't it? Jesse Eisenberg in this as well. What I say?
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
that's
he
the,
is.
yeah. I think so. Yeah, this movie's like this is one that it's been too long since I've
And
seen to really give you
did
any.
I think Kevin Williamson might have written this one too,
I think so.
or
Yeah,
had some involvement.
but as I understand it, they reshot like big chunk of it, and uh,
I was listening to a podcast about it, and I think like they said like they reshot like 90% of it or something, like something crazy like that.
and it makes you wonder like how bad was that first version if the new version is
Yeah.
this garbage.
Well,
It's baffling. It's
yeah,
baffling.
it's been a while since I've seen it, and it's one that actually I think will be fun to revisit eventually for the podcast, just because sometimes the really bad movies make for fun episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I look forward to checking it out again. But yeah, I remember it being really bad as well.
Yeah, yeah. Bad CG, awful characters. The sort of whodunit of who the werewolf is just not really
Yeah.
mattering or meaning much. Really, really rough time. What's your 48?
48. That is Annabelle, the first Annabelle movie. Yeah, this I think we're fairly positive, in the Conjuring movies, and I kind of like. Well, I feel like I like the expanded universe, but I don't know, maybe it has been more misses than hits at this point. But I don't know. I think this went on to have some pretty decent sequels, but this first movie, it's boring. It's like I don't know, stupid. Like, it's not like fun, and I don't know. The ending sucked. A lot sucked about it.
Oh, that sucked. Yes, it's not even the like the premise you think it's going to be because it's about a doll. It's not even that. It's like just
that
this.
that's yeah, that's the big thing. It's not you're expecting a creepy doll movie, and it's not that. It's just generic dumb supernatural movie that we've been getting a lot of around that time. And there might be like maybe like one or few little set pieces here and there that I'm like, oh, it's kind of cool. Like I remember kind of liking the elevator sequence, but I mean, other than that though, it's pretty bad.
No accounting for taste.
Sure.
um, yeah, yes, yeah. The Annabelle's really bad, really, really bad. My number 48 is one that we did do in streams pretty recently, actually.
Okay.
I still know what you did last summer.
Uh,
That's right. Uh,
yeah.
the movie where they all go to an island because they think they've won a radio contest, even though the radio people phoned them and they gave the wrong answer. And it's an almost 2 hour long movie for what
Yeah.
should be an 80-minute slasher movie. It repeats beats of the first one. Some of the characters are just like thoroughly annoying. The actor who turned out to be the killer, I'll just say he's particularly bad, without spoiling anything. But yes, not that the first one is that good because it isn't. The first one is pretty mediocre at best.
Right.
It's kind of the epitome of what 90s horror movies were. Because 90s kind of sucks as a decade for horror. That's not to say there's no good ones, but
Yeah.
overall, it's kind of a sucky decade for it. So, I Still Did Last Summer is definitely near the bottom of that barrel. So, what is your 47?
Just a quick mention about that. I could have sworn I had that on my list, but I must have erased it for something else because I don't see it anymore. But yeah, that is a really bad one. All right, so my 47 is Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. Again, Paranormal Activity is a franchise that I rather fairly like. I don't think it's necessarily the best, but I think I like more of the ones that I hate.
I like it more than that I would think I would. Like,
Yeah,
I like 1, 2, 3
yeah,
fairly well.
and I think the marked ones, like, I don't know, it just went in a weird direction that I didn't like, and I don't know, it's maybe as its own, it could have been a little more interesting than I don't know, tying it in to the series, but it just really didn't do anything for me. Like I do like the idea of it seemed like they were kind of focusing on like a different thing, which could have been cool, but it just didn't come together for me. I just really didn't like it.
What's weird is that this was meant to be a spin-off and it was going to go back to the numbered ones after, but then they decided the next numbered one was going to be the last one, so they just
Yeah.
had a subtitle again. It was weird. I don't
Yeah.
know. It was a bizarre sequence of events, but yes, no, not particularly good. I don't know if I hate it enough to have it on a top 50, admittedly, but um, it definitely felt redundant. I do recall thinking it was better than 4.
I think maybe at least with 4, I think I like that there was still some type of continuity or connection to it. I think that's what kind of puts this one a little bit above that for me in terms of not liking it. Is that it's just such a weird departure. Like, why do this?
Hmm. All right. My number 47. We're sticking in. But is this still the 90s? That's actually maybe like 2000. This might just be in the 2000s. But Urban Legends Final Cut.
Okay.
All I remember from this movie is that they're on a film set, I think, and the killer's killing people on a film set. And, well, the first one, again, is not that good a movie. This is very similar to what we did last summer. The first one's not good, and then the sequel is like, holy shit, like, you people are absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about all I can tell you though. I remember the kills being bad. I remember the characters being extremely annoying.
I do want to revisit the urban legend movies because I say this all the time and it is annoying, but I do end up watching like bad movies more than good ones just because I'm always the good ones I always know that I like them, but with bad movies, I always like forget where I'm like, did I hate this? Or I don't know. Maybe if I revisit it, maybe there'll be something about it that that I like. And um, I think Scream Factory put out Blu-rays for. I don't know if it's both movies or just the first one, but I have been thinking about picking it up maybe at some point if it's on sale, just because I want to revisit it. But yeah, I don't remember liking it when it first came out.
Yeah. Hey, what's your 46?
46, another like very odd departure kind of sequel. 46 for me is Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2.
Hmm.
Uh, Now, admittedly, I wouldn't say that I'm even the biggest fan of the Blair Witch Project. I do think it's definitely interesting, and it's cool that it's doing something different. So I respect it for a lot of reasons, but it's not like my favorite movie to watch. But this sequel is like, Jesus, what were they thinking? Like, it is such like a weird departure and so crazy, and like they bring on a documentary filmmaker to make a movie that's not like even going to be doing like a found footage documentary style. It's really bad and stupid.
I yeah, I mean, I guess another one where I heard that the idea from what the original point was completely changed. That because
Yeah,
that movie opens with like Marilyn Manson playing over the credits, and that was
yeah.
like not what was supposed to be. That was something that was added by the studio kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
this one definitely reeks of studio interference. Like, I'm sure there's a cool idea behind it, but yeah, what we get is
yeah,
pretty
I'd
bad.
be curious to see like whatever the original vision was for it, to see if it
Yeah,
was something, because even if it wasn't good, it might have at least felt more like, okay, I see at least what the artistic attempt
yeah.
tier was. My number 46 is Nail Gun Massacre, which is a movie that I am pissed at because I ended up buying it the second time on Blu-ray.
Oh no.
Um, I bought the US Code Red Blu-ray, which went out of print, and I hated the movie, so I got to sell it for a profit, which I was like, okay, can't be too mad.
Mhm.
And then there's a numbered slasher collection in the UK with the spine numbers,
Oh no.
and I was like, oh no, I need to buy it just so that I've got the spine numbers. Damn it! So that really upset me. But the movie is a really really bad slasher movie that looks awful. It's shot on shitty. It feels like it's uh, always these really laid back shots because the directors just don't know how to direct and edit a movie. The kills aren't fun, and it's just painful to sit through. It feels like you're watching something by people. It looks like a home movie at times,
Uh,
and it was a rough time. I did not enjoy Nail Gun Massacre in the slightest. Even though obviously the title and the poster made me go, I want to see this because Nail
it
Gun
sounds
Massacre.
cool. Yeah.
It does. But it is not one of the good massacre movies. Stick to your slumber parties, stick to your
Chainsaws.
chainsaw, of course, um, and other ones that I'm sure we'll cover on Screams at some point. What's your number 45, Timmy?
So this might sound a little bit confusing, so just kind of stay with me here. My number 45 is 31.
You thought that was going to be confusing because the title's a number? Was that a
Yeah.
joke? That was the joke there, Tim? Come on, come
It's
on!
like an Abbott and Costello routine. Like, hey, what's your 45? 31. No, 45. I'm telling you, 45 is 31. No, we're not on 31 yet. But I mean, Rob Zombie had to come up on the list
Oh
sooner or
yeah,
later.
yeah, yeah.
And I don't want to spoil too much, but it might not be the last that we hear from him. Uh, but yeah, I mean, if you like Rob Zombie, fine, but just everything about his aesthetic, it is just so hard for me to sit through. It's just everything is so like grimy and dirty, but it's in like such a, I don't know, like shitty manufactured, like trying to be in your face way. And this one was just it just seemed like it was just trying to be that so over the top extreme gore, and like people like giving testimonies to the camera, dressing up like clowns, and like trying to be sexy. And I hate it. I hate everything about it.
Yep. 31. Lots of veiled characters doing veiled shit,
Yeah.
but never been engaging. I agree. Number 45. You probably aren't expecting too much James Wan on this list,
Uh, I think I know what you're gonna say.
but Dead Silence
Yeah.
has to be here. I hate this movie. It is everything I
Oh boy.
dislike about 2000s movies. It's got that shitty dark green filter or dark blue filter. Um, I yeah, they'll do it. They'll do it. That's it.
It's very bad. And hey, I like a creepy puppet movie, but
Oh, we know.
this one is bad.
We know. We know. I remember very little about the plot. I honestly do. I remember the brother from what True Blood, I want to say,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is in it, and I remember it looking like garbage and just being painfully bored. That is all I remember about that movie. But
I think there
it's
was a
here.
thing where like they cut out the tongues or something, and then yeah, it was another one of those ones where they try to have a surprise at the end, like oh, this person was in on it all along, and yeah, bad. All right, 44. I don't know. This one might be a little controversial. It is Friday the 13th,
Whoa.
a new beginning.
All right, Friday the 13th Part 5, as it
Yeah.
otherwise would be known as, yes.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm kind of actually. I feel like the usually when a horror movie, whenever they do some type of beginning subtitle, it usually doesn't end up being very good, does it? Like, can't think of any of like many good examples, but yeah, I mean, Friday the 13th isn't my favorite franchise. Growing up, I wasn't as into it. I mentioned this before, but I always felt like you're either a Nightmare guy or a Friday guy, and I lean more Nightmare. But I grew to have a soft spot for Friday the 13th, but I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of every movie. There's some I really love, and then there's some I think that are just okay. This one I just think is so bad, and you know I feel like it does. You know, it's why it kind of has a reputation of being the bad one, or or people will kind of accuse it of being like the fake, because it has like the the fake Jason in it and everything. Spoiler alert. But yeah, not crazy about this one. It's I'll watch it if I'm doing a marathon, but otherwise I tend to kind of skip it.
It's not good. I don't think it's painful to get through. Uh, it's just obviously the lesser of these slasher sequels of Friday the
Yeah.
13th. But I could see it. Number 44.
Uh-oh.
The Boy.
How dare you?
You should be thanking me that it's only at 44. Thanking me.
Worse than Dead Silence, though. You would rather watch Dead Silence over The Boy? Come on.
I would.
Um,
Not gladly.
I'll hold you to that then.
Oh, well, when's this going to come up? Where it's going to have to be The Boy or Dead Silence? Are you going to have to make me call my bluff? Like, when's this going to happen?
I'm gonna go to your house. I'll hold a gun to your head, and I'll make you choose. I shouldn't joke about that. Gun violence is a very bad thing. So obviously that's I'm being very facetious here. But yeah, that's that. I mean, I think you thought you were doing the best of list, so I'll forgive you for that.
Now, The Boy is painfully cliched. It's full of tropes. It does the wake up from a nightmare fake out twice, not once, but twice. The twist is.
Oh yeah, it's very cliche. All those other horror movies about a woman that is hired to babysit a doll. Yeah, there's so many of them. I can't even count. That's so
I'm
unoriginal.
talking about the presentation, the execution, the scares themselves, how that all that stuff happens. The Boy sucks, Tim.
No.
It sucks, the big one, and you're in denial. You've still been in denial all this time. Since 2016, you've been in denial. And just because Bram's The Boy 2 Electric Boogaloo, or whatever it's called, is coming out in December, which is the nastiest Christmas present I think I've ever had. You don't get to say that it's a good movie. It's not a good movie. It's a bad movie.
It is a good movie. It's a perfectly fine movie, and you shouldn't be ashamed if you like it.
Yes, you should. You should be ashamed. You should be going to like therapy and figuring out what's wrong with your head.
I host a boy support group for people that are cyberbullied by other people. I will remain nameless because I'm better than that. But yeah, we're here for each other.
What's your number 43?
This was another hard one to put on the list. I hate to do it. This will probably be the best director that's on this list, but The Ward, of course, obviously from
Mm.
John Carpenter, who is probably the best horror director ever. But I don't know. This movie is it's late Carpenter, which people tend to criticize a bit more, but
It's the latest Carpenter. This is the newest thing he's
yeah, it's
done.
the last. Yeah, and I feel like he's still got it in him. I don't know if this was just it's something like if he wasn't feeling it or if he was just taking a paycheck or didn't have his heart into it. I don't know what happened with this movie, but it's painfully boring. It's one of those ones where I think I've tried to like you can't watch all the way through. It'll probably take like 4 or 5 settings because it's just so dull and forgettable. And it sucks because obviously John Carpenter is like the best, and so I hate to put it on here, but what can you do?
I haven't seen it. I can't comment. But
Yeah, well, future episode at some point, unfortunately.
damn, you're breaking my spirits here. Well, I'll take us on then to my number 43, which
The Witch? Is
no,
your
no,
43?
no, no, no.
Oh, okay.
WHICH, which I'm starting a sentence here.
Okay.
Which may get a reaction from a certain co-host who may or may not be on this show.
Okay. Oh, I think I know what it is. All right.
I don't know if you do, but we'll see.
Is it based on a Stephen King?
No,
story?
that's
Oh,
not.
okay. Never mind.
That's
Never
not. No.
mind.
But you do like the director a lot. My number 43 is Crimson Peak.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as soon as you said director, I was like, oh, okay, it's going to be Guillermo del Toro. I did like Crimson Peak, but I do think it is one of the lesser DDT movies. I won't hold you too much to that.
I hate the feel of it. I hate the horror of it. I hate how it looked. Everything looked like a fake stage. Everything looked like like I felt the fakeness of everything the whole time.
I don't know. I like the look at it. I thought it. I don't know. It felt like very gothic to me. I think he was trying to kind of go for that aesthetic. And I mean, admittedly, if you don't like the CGI, I understand that. But I don't know. Worked for me. But
Yeah, CGI was a big problem. CGI. Yeah, this was what I didn't expect to like it before I saw it, and I I came out, hating it. Like, because I'm not a big GDT guy, and I like a couple of his movies, but like even the ones I don't like that everyone loves, like Shape of Water, like I'd take Shape of Water over Crimson Peak. I think Crimson Peak's the worst movie that I've seen of his. Like I hated it. I hated the characters. I hated they've got big actors in there, but I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different thing that he's trying to go for. Like, I get he's trying to do kind of like feels like a tragic gothic romance kind of story, but
yeah,
which I don't think a lot of people would dig.
Yeah, it's too big and like expensive. It just like I feel like all the horror is just sucked out of everything. Like just by the setting and just by the way everything looks. It just like I don't care about any of this. Like the CG is not scary. The tone just isn't there for me. I painful to get through. So,
admittedly, I liked it when I saw it, but it's not like I don't own it. I haven't watched it since I've seen it. So it's not one that I revisit, but I'll still stick up for it.
It's the Crimson Peak of his filmography. Yes. What's your 42?
This is I don't know. This might be a little controversial because I don't know. Like some people might say maybe it's not a horror movie, which fine. But I don't know. I still wanted this particular series makes me so mad. I still wanted it represented on the list. And I think it's fair enough. So my 42 is Resident Evil. It's man, can you so I guess the reason why I'm saying some people might not consider it a horror movie, some people because it does feel like more actiony, but I mean still it's based on one of the most iconic horror games and whatever.
I think that I wouldn't call the movie franchise a horror franchise, but I think the first one you get enough of a horror vibe to go with it. I have to admit, this is something that I absolutely despise. Tim knows I despise it. We've talked about this at length. But I never counted it for this. It never occurred to me to include it for whatever reason. Probably because what you're saying, it just doesn't feel like a horror movie.
Yeah. No, yeah, I totally get that, but it's like some of these movies I just think are bad or are boring or is disappointed in. But like you said earlier, there are some movies that have to be on the list because they just inspire so much hatred. And man, I have so much hatred for this franchise as a whole. And I mean, I can't really think of like it's one of those ones, and I don't know if you had high hopes when you first saw it, but like I think I was fairly, and I was younger at the time, so I probably didn't know as much going into it, but I think I was fairly excited to see it, and man, I just felt so deflated afterwards. Like,
Mm.
like it was just like that's not Resident Evil. What did they do to Resident Evil? That's not. No, this isn't right.
What was it? I was 13, I think, when this came out.
Yeah,
2002, yeah, 13.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I saw I saw the second one in the theaters as well, but that was the last one I saw in theaters. That was like I learned my
Yeah.
lesson. Fool me once, shame on you.
Yeah,
Fool me
I
twice,
think.
shame on me.
And yeah, the reason why I put this, more than the other sequels, is because this is the one probably trying to be most like a horror movie, and with the later ones, I don't know if I've seen all of them. I might have missed one or two. I think I have seen the majority of them, and um, with the later ones, at least they try to incorporate elements of the game into it. They're still really bad, but at least eventually you do start to get familiar characters and bad guys and stuff. So I don't think they're necessarily better than this movie, but at least you can kind of give them a little credit for trying, to be more like the games, even though they still suck. So
Oh, they suck. They suck
yeah,
so much. I hate them. I
yeah.
hate them. So good pick, even though I forgot to put it on mine. Which you actually made
Yeah.
me think of something else I forgot to put on mine. So I'm just going to mention this briefly as an honorable mention. I
Mm.
freaking hate Underworld. I hate it with every fiber of my
Oh
being.
yeah.
So, and I forgot to include it in this for whatever reason. So garbage.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think these kind of movies, I don't know. Some people might call them horror movies, but they do feel like, and I guess you can make a case for them, but you can also make a case for them being like action movies with horror elements or whatever. So I can see why they wouldn't jump
Mm.
out at you as being on the list. But yeah, Underworld is really bad, and like you were saying earlier, with the movies that have that kind of like 2000s, like just like blue or green filter over them, like Underworld like was so bad with that.
Yeah, it was almost monochrome, just in a bit of blue tint
Yeah.
because it was so desaturated. My number 42 is one that the review went up for very, very, very recently, and that is
Oh.
Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare.
Ah.
We talked about it at length. A good hour or so we talked about that. Yeah, Freddy's Dead is like the true ugly duckling of the franchise. And again, I'm saying that without having seen the remake, so the remake might even be worse. But the the movie, like, it takes it to this illogical place where it doesn't really line up with anything continuity wise with the previous films. Adds in a bunch of its own sequel mythology that doesn't line up with any of the mythology from before, which is one of my least favorite things that sequels do. Despise it. So yeah, I'll leave it there. But like, we spoke about this for an hour like just recently, so you can go back and very recently and check our thoughts on it in depth.
Yeah.
So yeah, what is your 41?
So, again, this is a movie that I think maybe a lot of people might like, and I would actually probably say I liked it fairly recently until I was watching it again and watching it under specific circumstances that made me realize, like, oh yeah, this movie sucks. But I do think part of the reason why people like it so much is that it has a great name, and that movie is Chud, which it's just so much fun to say, and it's cool. Like it sounds good as an insult, and then it's like you can kind of feel a little superior to people when they don't know what it means, and you're like, oh, it stands for blah blah blah, cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers, which it sounds like such a cool thing, but I don't know, like it feels like the box looks cool, the name's cool, and it's always felt like, oh yeah, that's like a good movie. And then I'd recently watched it, I think like last year, when Joe Bob Briggs did it as part of the last drive-in, and he hates this movie. And actually listening to him talk about it, I was like, oh yeah, this does suck. Like the chuds are barely in it. Like you see, it's like they're so minimal. And then when you do see them, they're very cheap. And then yeah, one of the big reasons why he Joe Bob doesn't like the movies. They talked about how it was kind of made by like these kind of like New York yuppies that like didn't like horror, and they kind of made it a movie that they wanted to turn their noses down at horror and show how stupid it was. And uh so there's this kind of like air of pretentiousness, and we're above this kind of movie, which I mean, I don't know if a lot of that is Joe Bob projecting on that, or if that was something that really happened. But either way, it does kind of taint it in a bad light. And yeah, if you do go back and watch it now, like it sounds like it should be like a fun, cheesy B movie, but it is like actually just really boring, and not you don't see a lot of chuds and stuff in
I've not seen Chud. I can't comment.
it.
Cannot comment, but that was a wonderful monologue. My number 41 is actually the first repeat, because you've said this one already,
Ooh.
and that is Phantasm Ravager.
Ah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think that this gets on this list because I felt a little embarrassed watching it. I felt like,
yeah,
I felt like, oh, like, this would be the sort of thing where I'd feel too bad to tell them that I didn't like it, so I'd be like, oh, so yes, it's the fifth one, yeah.
Oh no, totally, yeah.
Yeah. I felt embarrassed watching it. It felt like,
Yeah,
no, what this once was has just, this many, and obviously Don Coscarelli didn't direct this one, but like, it's not even like, he's been making good movies, around in different ways. I mean, I don't think I love John Dies at the End, but like Bubba Hotep from 2002, I love that movie.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love it. I think it's a really good movie, and I feel like if Phantasm 5 was just in that kind of budget quality, it'd be
yeah,
great, or not great, but I mean it could be great at least. But the movie is just such this weird departure for what the franchise had been up until that point, and it looks so
yeah,
cheap. It looks depressingly cheap that you can't really get past it, and at least I couldn't anyway. It's
yeah.
upsetting. It's an upsetting sequel.
No, yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Where it is embarrassing watching it, because yeah, you are seeing these people that you've loved so much early in this franchise, and hate to say it, but just like a lot of people just feels like they're too old for it now. Like
Mm-hmm.
you know, uh, I don't know. It seems like maybe you could try to maybe just bring in new people, and maybe have like little cameos from some like the old cast or something. But then try to take in another direction. Maybe try to go back to like the horror roots, make it like a weird kind of more ethereal horror like the first one or something. But yeah, it is just so far away from what the franchise has started out as. It's bad.
Yep. That one does hurt. It does hurt to put that on there. Um, what's your number 40?
This is one I tried rewatching recently, and I could barely get through it, and that is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's like, remember like when like Bram Stoker's Dracula came out, and like that was like a big movie and everyone's so psyched for it, and then like some people like it, some people don't like it, but whatever. But then they came out with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and it seemed like it was gonna be kind of the same thing, like a big budget version of Frankenstein, and Robert De Niro is Frankenstein. Holy shit! Like,
Mm-hmm.
but I was watching it, and like I don't know, like some movies are just like gross. Like I hated the way Frankenstein looks in it. Like I like kind of like like turns my stomach, and it's just so boring, and like I feel like they're trying to be like adult and sexy about it. Where like we don't need like Frankenstein to be sexy. Like a really bad movie. I do not like it.
Yeah. I'd never seen it, but I mean, because it was that, and then you had Jack Nicholson's Wolf was around the same
Yeah.
time, so that was kind of like completing the big budget, Hollywood star versions of these classic Universal
Yeah.
monsters. Yeah. But no, I've never seen it. It never appealed to me. So, uh, my number 40 is again another repeat. That's another one that you've also mentioned already,
Ooh, okay.
and this is 31, because Rob Zombie is running wild, and that
Yeah.
man knows how to make me detest a movie. He really does. And this is not his worst by any means. More on that later.
Yeah.
But this is definitely an unpleasant movie to watch, with characters that are frustrating to get behind. Um, when the horror stuff kicks in, instead of feeling like a good horror scene, it feels like a music video, and
Yeah.
it feels like it lacks any of the appropriate tension because of that. I find myself very just zoned out, but also mildly just like not disgusted, but like ugh, like
Yeah,
ugh.
no, yeah, there's like something about that aesthetic that's just like unpleasant to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever met anyone that likes it, like likes that style.
They exist. I know there's Rob Zombie fans out there
Yeah.
somewhere. He's got a fan base. So
Mm,
power to you if you like it, but
mm.
not for me. Number 40. What's your 39?
Actually, it's not too kind of far off from what you were just saying. My 39 is like is Leatherface, which I
Ah,
feel I don't like for kind of like a lot of the same reasons. Like it's kind of got that aesthetic that trying to be like crazy, extreme, and violent, and dirty, and blah blah blah. And it's just bad. And you kind of mentioned like earlier with um franchise stuff. It's a prequel, not a sequel, but when they're trying to hammer stuff into a mythology where it's
hmm.
just like this is so unnecessary and you don't need it.
Leatherface was a noble patient who tried to save
Yeah.
the main character, but then through unfortunate luck and a series of events, he became Leatherface.
Yeah.
Let's make Leatherface sympathetic.
Yeah, he was the Joker of a few years ago. It's a Leatherface, a incel hero. uh, yeah, it's bad. It's very stupid. And then just and it's by the people that did Inside, which was a
Mm,
horror movie that I really liked. So I did have hopes for it, but um, yeah, there's really isn't anything to like about it.
yeah, that's fair. My number 39 is something relatively recent and well known, and that is The Nun,
Yeah, yep.
which like I didn't put it higher on this because it at least has some batshit insane ideas later on, where it's like, wait, this is basically turning into a superhero movie. What happened here? But like, it's just like the first half of it is so tedious to get through. It's just doing all these cliched scenes where there's no pacing. Like it's one of those things where I'm like, the direction in this is pretty. Like if the direction was good, maybe it'd like salvage it and become like a fun little movie. But the direction kind of, the execution just falls flat, and because of that, it's painfully boring to sit through. And then it gets to some weird sort of big grandiose ideas in the last like 30 minutes. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
this could almost have been like fun, ridiculous bad because of these big ideas they're introducing, but they didn't really go into it enough to really, save the movie. But rough time, rough time.
Yeah, it's a shame. I feel like it was kind of all over the place, like because yeah, there's some interesting ideas that probably wouldn't have made a good movie, but like you said, could have been like a cool cheesy B movie that's like, oh my god, this is ridiculous but kind of fun. And then I do like kind of like the set pieces, like I like that kind of gothic feeling that I think it was going for, but a lot of times it just ends up again defaulting to shitty, jump scares and bad CGI, and yeah, it's just a little boring and tedious. I think it's the second movie on the countdown from that was written by Gary Dauberman because he did Annabelle as well. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he pops up again. But yeah, I was looking forward to the Nun too. Unfortunately, it didn't really
Gary
do much for
Doberman's
me.
Reign of Terror.
Yeah.
Dear. What's your number 38?
I was so mad when I had to watch this for the show because I had seen like a special screening of it and I hated it so much, and then I knew that I was gonna have to watch it again for the show, and that is Rings. It is so bad. It's I don't even know where to begin. Like the characters suck. It's not like a reboot, but I guess like I don't know what you would call this. Like, I mean, I guess it's just a straight up
it,
sequel, but it
it
kind of feels like they're trying to do like a
it's a
reinvention,
it's a requel.
a requel. Yeah. But it's just it's so bad. Like the characters were so stupid. The plot was ridiculous, and it's just one of those things where it's like, why are you trying to be so like complicated and stuff when the first one has like a nice cool premise with like easy to follow rules, and then everything's trying to go big and crazy, and yeah, I really hated everything about this movie.
Yes, I remember the characters being especially frustrating because
Yeah.
I think the entire third act would have been solved if either one of them had ever actually just decided to phone the other one
Yeah.
but just never did, if I recall correctly. What's funny though is that
Yeah.
actress ended up being the lead in Revenge, which I actually liked a lot. So
Oh. Oh, okay.
yeah, that was
I
her.
didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just goes to show that you can take someone out of a bad movie, put them in a good movie, and all of a sudden, hey, they're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
My number 38 is the 1999 version of The Haunting. Which again, we have this problem of a star-studded cast. You had Liam Neeson, I think. Was Catherine Zeta-Jones in that? I want to say she
I
was.
believe so. Yeah.
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 And I just remember it being very nonsensical and just like everything that was wrong with horror movies at the time. Like, well, not everything,
Yeah.
because obviously there's a lot of bad slasher movies because it was like post-Scream, but like this idea of the big star-studded horror movies where like we'll get these big names in, but obviously that it's like they're relying on that to sell the movie, but the rest of the movie is nothing but really bland. It's always like too much mythology as well. It's always too much backstory that they have to over-explain and things like that. So
And I think the big problem with this one is it takes itself so seriously
mhm.
because this was amid like a bunch of like remakes from that time period. Like they also did like I think 13 Ghosts and like House on a Haunted Hill remakes were around this time, and I wouldn't say those are necessarily good movies, but at least they're like cheesy and can be kind of fun to watch. Where this is just like, yeah, there's no cheesiness. Everything is just so deadly serious about it.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your 37?
So well, I'll say it first. It's a Ouija, which you know, there's other stuff like on the list that I have like very specific gripes with. This is just one of those ones that is just like the epitome of uh, just being so generic that you know, like when I think of the kind of like horror movies that I don't want to watch, like this is like a perfect example of that, where it's just you know the characters are nothing, the plot is nothing, the scares you've seen a million times, and it's stupid, and it's weird that it actually went on to have kind of a good sequel. Like I like Ouija too, but this one's just so dumb.
Yeah, it's generic trash. That through and through. That's what it is. Bad acting, bad script,
Mm,
dumb ending, just everything you don't want in it. Everything.
yeah.
My number 37. Oh, we're back in for one of these. The Howling Four, the original Nightmare. This is the one where they actually have just dogs running after them at the end and pretending to be werewolves. This one is just. This is a painfully boring remake of the first one. They're in
Yeah.
this town. There's kind of like a thing where like there's like the shop owner in town wants to have sex with a husband, and that was painfully kind of like teased throughout the film. But the whole thing is just so slow. My God.
Yeah, it's so strange. Like it's like why like why does this exist? Like if you are going to remake something, like you think you would do it because it's like, all right, like the studio has the rights to this and they want to make like a big budget reimagining or something, but this is just so slow and low budget and boring, and yeah, it's like the Howling movies. It's just like each one, it's like less and less werewolves in it. It's ridiculous.
My God. Tim's got more werewolves in his bathroom than this movie did.
Sure.
What's your 36?
Uh, I don't know. I'm looking at my list and now I'm wondering, like, this might be too high, but
Oh.
too late to change it though. It's a Halloween Resurrection. Um,
Trick or treat, mother effer.
yeah. I don't know. Would you call this like the Freddy's Dead of the Halloween franchise? Like,
Oh no,
it's
no, no! I wouldn't. No, there's another one I have in mind for that.
okay. I'm assuming it's probably on your list, maybe.
Yes, yes.
All right. So
We'll get to what I consider the Freddy's Dead of the Halloween
okay.
franchise.
Yeah, and like with franchise movies, sometimes I'm fine, if they go in a cheesy direction because it can still be fun. But this is just painful, and actually, maybe similar to Ravager, it is kind of embarrassing. Like, seeing this character, this mythological like killer that we held in such high regard, and it's now like you know, people are doing one-liners and like karate kicking him in the face, and it's so and like, does anything date a movie more than like, an internet element to it? Like the whole like whatever chat room thing about it is just so
The
dumb.
live streaming. Do you know what's so funny about
Yeah.
that though is that live streaming was such an infant thing at the time that watching this movie and like, yeah, okay, the live stream is like this consistently stable. Sure, yeah, in 2002, I still believe that. And then the other thing is that they make a big deal of the fact that the main character, she has like this like text message system, this device. It's
Yeah.
not her phone, and she can text the like her love interest guy, and it's
Mhm.
like they make such a big deal about this. I'm like, this is just every phone now. Like, it's just weird. If anything
Yeah.
dates this movie, it's the how much the emphasis to put on this. Hey, we can text each other. Like, oh no shit.
Yeah.
So
Uh, yeah,
yeah,
it's so bad. And then like, and even on top of that, then you just add like all the other stuff that's, that makes a bad movie bad. Like, the direction's bad, the acting's bad. So,
the
yeah.
opening just throwing away Julia Curtis.
Yep. Oh, oh yeah, of course. Oh, duh. One of like the worst things about it, yeah,
Yeah.
is it totally retcons the end of H2O, which H2O is not the best Halloween movie, but I like it like quite a bit, and it has such a specific ending, and the beginning, tries so hard to retcon it. It's very bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. That was 36. My number 36 is Paranormal Activity 4, aka the one with the Connect.
Oh right. Yeah, yeah, I forgot about that.
For me, this is the one where they just stretched the story too thin. Where this was the one that when I got to the end of it, like what they did at the end felt like it just rehashed what the end of 3 did, and I like 3 a lot. I think
Yeah.
3 is the best one, and
If they stopped at 3, this would be, like, a pretty good trilogy.
yeah,
Like,
I think so too. Yeah,
yeah,
but 4 it feels like they just didn't have any ideas, and they try to do some
yeah,
stuff where like okay, this family adopts the kid and stuff starts, but
mhm,
I felt like the story was done, and I felt like
yeah,
at the end, the sort of final shot, like creepy moment they had was like, yeah, we kind of just did essentially the same thing in the last one. There's nothing new happened. It felt like filler. It felt like filler in a franchise, uh,
yeah,
which obviously some franchises are just the same thing over and over again anyway. But this was a franchise that was kind of advancing its story a little bit and revealing more each time. So this one just felt really rough.
mm.
So yeah, Paranormal Activity 4, I cannot endorse it in any way.
Mhm.
Tim, what was your number 35?
So this is my first repeat. So you already mentioned this, but 35 for me is Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. Yeah, I mean, I said it before, the Nightmare franchise is my favorite franchise, and I am a pretty big defender for pretty much every movie except for this one. Like, I think obviously everyone loves the first one, and usually like, the first three people are pretty positive on, and then I still really stick up for four and even five I like, but
Do you know what,
this
Tim? You
is
converted me before. When we watched 4, I was
yeah.
surprised how much better it was. 5, though, you're on your own. I'm not
I'll
defending 5.
well, I'll take my victories where I can get it. At least, yeah, at least I got you on four. And to be fair, like five, it's still the worst of like those five, but I think it is still better than like, I wouldn't call it bad, but this is like such a huge plummet. It's like, like you said, we did it recently, so go listen to that hour about it. I won't harp on it too much, but it's just everything that I hate about Freddy encapsulated in this movie, and
Remember
like you said, it.
the Wicked Witch part near the start of the film when he's on the broom?
Yeah, yeah, they like everyone talks about like Freddy being this kind of like, cheesy cartoon character, and he slowly becomes that. But even up until then, I think there's still a sinister element, and like stuff like four and five. Even if he's cracking jokes, I think he is still trying to be menacing. This, he's just like a straight up cartoon. It's like, what is dressing up like the Wicked Witch of the West, or like doing kind of like Bugs Bunny type gags, like how is that supposed to be scary? Like at that point, it's just, you're not even trying. And Yeah, it sucks. It really really sucks.
Yep. There you go. Freddy's dead. That will take me on to number. What are we on? 35?
Yeah.
35. And somewhat related. Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, which we just had go up for
Yeah.
everyone last Friday, actually. So you can go and see our extended thoughts on that. But yeah, like what do we do? Like it baffles me so much. New Line got the rights to the Friday the 13th franchise, and the first thing they do is make a film that is supposedly the last in the franchise. But not only that, it's not a slasher movie. It's some weird possession movie where the spirit of Jason is traveling from body to body.
Mhm.
What does this sound like? Because it doesn't sound like a Friday the 13th movie.
Nope, not at all.
It's not even good. Like I've heard some people every so often you'll hear someone say, "Okay, it's not a good Friday the 13th movie, but it's a good movie on its own." No, it's not.
No,
No, it's not.
those people are insane.
They're absolutely insane. I can't be having it. It's an insult to the rest of the franchise. Even Part 5, I think, is perfectly watchable compared to this travesty.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it showing up in Tim's list because if it doesn't, I'm going to be mad at him. But
We'll see.
yeah, it's coming. It's coming. So that's just goes to hell. Fail Freddy. Tim, motion number 34.
Another entry in a franchise I mentioned before, The Ring 2.
Oh,
Man, this has got to be like the one of the like worst sequels ever. Like the American Ring remake was surprisingly like good when it came out. I think it's aged a little bit, but I think it's still fine.
mm.
Uh, the sequel is so bad. It's just like a lot of dumb jump scares. It feels like they didn't really know what to do with the story. So, because like so much of the first one is like about this mystery element, but then you solve that at the end, and I feel like that's what's the problem with like a lot of the Ring sequels is you solve the mystery. So what else do you do? And then like bad sequels do, they try to ham fist all this other mythology and stuff into it, and then you got the kid trying to be all creepy, and you got like bad CGI deer in it. So it's a total mess, and yeah,
Did
it's
you
it's
enjoy the
bad.
scene when he's laying her clothes out for the funeral or whatever it was? I think that was the second one.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. That's another thing. I think we talked about it when we did the review, but like I hate the kind of the Hollywood trope where like the parent's kind of a mess, but the kid is like so adult,
Yeah.
and it's stupid.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, that review, actually, because I was looking through old reviews for administrative reasons. And that was like 2016. That was like 3 years ago. Time does
Oh
fly.
wow.
I know. Everything we've done, I feel like it was just recently, and then I'm like, no, wait, that was like 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Shit, time is flying. So yeah, that's I can't fault that pick. It's a terrible movie. I don't even think the first Ring movie from the US is that good. Like, so some people really like it. I think it's kind of overrated. It's kind of sterile.
I think when it first came out, it was like, wow, this is really cool. And then when we did revisit it, I see a lot of the flaws now. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's like horrible. It's like it's fine, but
Hmm.
yeah, I wouldn't call it like a classic or anything. I think some people still think like, oh yeah, man, that's like top 10. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah. Honestly, the only Ring movie worth watching is the original Japanese one. Ignore the sequels, ignore the remakes. That said, Kayako
I
versus
think
Sadako was a fun time, but like,
that's a lot of fun. I think what helps the first Ring movie is like we didn't realize Japan was making horror movies at the time. So I think when it came out, we were like, "Whoa, this is cool." We didn't realize like, "Oh no, we can go watch the Japanese versions and they're much better."
yes. My number 34, and this is maybe the most controversial of my
Uh-oh.
my list. Um, Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember you don't like that movie.
Yeah, I hate this movie. I think it rushes through everything to a point where nothing has any of the atmosphere or mood. I don't think any of it works, and I hate it. And because this is one of the few movies where I've actually read the book, and I really like
Mm,
the book. And I think one of the things that's really effective with the book is the slow build of tension throughout the entire thing. It has this build of dread. It's almost Lovecraftian, except instead of like a
mm,
Lovecraftian thing, it's Dracula that we're
yeah.
dreading. And I think the movie goes so fast that it loses everything. It's like, no, let's put everything from the book in the movie. Well, yeah, but you're squeezing it into 2 hours, so it's like a
Mm.
checkbox. You're just going down listing things off. Um, so yeah,
I don't know. I still like it. I don't think it's a perfect version of the story, but there are like elements to it that I do like. I think a lot of the look I like, and you know what you might enjoy. You don't need to watch the movie again, but I would recommend checking out the comic book adaptation because it's drawn by Mike Mignola and it looks so good. It's, it's really, really good to look at.
Yes, yes, from the creator of Hellboy. Yes, yes,
Of
yes,
course.
yes. Yes, one of Tim's favorites. All right, then. What's your number 33?
One that we did this year. Uh, I really hated this one. Pet Cemetery.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I know we differ on the original, which is fine, but yeah, I'm a big fan of the book. I like the first movie. Uh, this movie, I don't even know where to begin. It is so bad. Like it's like first of all, they have to make dumb different choices just to differentiate it from the other version. It's unnecessary because it's not like it's not like there's anything about the original version that needed like updating or something that they couldn't include that they just had to get in there. And then even that stuff aside, it didn't look good. It looked stupid. Like some of the sets were like pretty cheap, and yeah, it just there was nothing about this I liked. It made me really mad.
yeah, I hate that. When they're out in the forest, and they're
Yeah,
clearly on a soundstage. I don't know,
yeah.
like all that stuff was really weird.
But
Canuck.
yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's how would you ever film in a forest? That's just too hard. That's no one's ever been able to do it.
Oh yeah. I feel like Joe. I like Jason Clarke because he's in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and that movie
Sure.
is a
Yeah.
10, right? But
Yeah.
I feel like he's been in nothing but garbage since then, and it breaks my heart. He was in
Yeah.
Winchester, he was in Pet Cemetery, he was in Terminator
Yeah.
Genesis.
Yeah, he's not bad, and actually, I really liked I like the mom in it. Apologize, I forget who played her, but I thought she was good. Even both of the kids I thought were good, but just I don't like what the story did. I don't like anything about it. It makes me mad.
Yeah, I saw that the same day as I saw Shazam because I had to see both for review at the same time, and I remember specifically going out my way to make sure Pet Cemetery was first because I wanted to have the movie that I expected to be at least maybe be good to be second
Yeah,
to pick my spirits up.
fair.
So yeah, that was that. My number 33 is a movie we did. Uh,
Yeah.
Admittedly, I did laugh at a little bit of this, so I can't say it was completely torture, but The Black Room was a very bad film. And Tim's trying to remember what
Was
this is.
that that was the one with like Lin Shaye's in the beginning?
Yeah, yeah, and it's Natasha Henstridge, and her husband gets
Okay.
possessed by a sex demon, and he's just
Right,
being
right.
horny the entire time.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a couple of funny scenes. Don't get me wrong. There's a scene where he makes like a waitress like orgasm randomly, and
Right, right,
mildly
right.
amusing. But his acting in that movie is something
Yeah,
else. He's chewing
yeah,
scenery. It's I don't know. It's one of those things. Well, I mean, it's almost a little bit embarrassing again because you kind of feel like Natasha Henstridge obviously was in Species. She did some big comics, she was in the whole 9 yards, and it kind of feels like she's an actor at this point in her life now where her flame of like success has kind of dwindled, and now she's doing
yeah.
these little straight to video like horror movies. And it just kind of felt like, okay, she's kind of your big name, but I just kind of feel sorry for her because she's in this.
Yeah,
It's a weird thing.
yeah. That
I
was
don't know.
unfortunate. I think of all the movies we've mentioned so far, that would probably be strangely the one I'd like first want to rewatch, just because it is so stupid. Like if you're watching
hmm
with friends, maybe having a few drinks, it could be fun, but it is really bad.
There was definitely a few. I had a lot more on here before I whittled them down that were kind of still had some fun elements or funny bad elements in them. And as I was kind of whittling them down, I was taking those away more and more because it was like, okay, well at least there's something to be amused about. Whereas a lot of
Yeah,
these aren't. A lot of these are just
yeah,
punishment.
yeah. That's like one thing you didn't really mention, but
Punish. Sorry.
one thing we didn't really mention is like I also stayed away from. There's a lot of movies where, in terms of the filmmaking, they're just like garbage. But I didn't include like let's say if this was not a horror list, but just like a general movie list, like I probably wouldn't put something like The Room on there because. Yeah, extremely, poorly made movie, but I get so much laughter and enjoyment from it that I feel like it doesn't really fit as well with these other movies that make me mad or
Hey,
cringe.
I've seen that more than Citizen Kane.
There you go.
You know,
Yeah.
there's some truth to that. So that's The Black Room. I don't really recommend it, but there is a couple of funny moments in it, but it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
What's your 32?
So, another Rob Zombie movie, House of a Thousand Corpses. And so his first movie, and I remember there's a lot of like hype leading up to this because everyone was like, "Holy shit, Rob Zombie's making a horror movie!" And I never really liked his music. Like, I mean, well, maybe I shouldn't say like, but I never really like listened to it. It just wasn't my genre of music. But yeah, I had other friends that kind of liked that were like, "Dude, this is gonna be insane. It's gonna be like so sick and crazy and twisted." And then you watch it, and it has all the tropes of a Rob Zombie movie. It looks bad. It's trying to be extreme in your face. It's dumb characters, and um, yeah, it sucks. I mean, of his movies, maybe it is one of the few that's maybe like a little more interesting to watch, but I don't know. It's still so annoying that why would you ever want to?
I am happy to say I've not seen it, but that's probably not going to be true for long.
Yeah, unfortunately.
My number 32. Oh, another franchise movie here. You asked me earlier what my Freddy's Dead of Halloween was. Here's your answer: Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers.
Yep.
This is the one where they try and retcon the idea that Michael Myers was actually brought on by a cult of Sam Hain and wanted to use Michael Myers as a tool for their own evil. He's not just a killer. He's not just someone who's evil or anything like that. No. There's a cult behind it who created him. I hate this with every fiber of my being. It's not that it's a well-made movie either. It's a pretty schlocky, sloppy directed movie, but it's just sad watching Donald Pleasance, who's clearly dying while they're making it because he passed away before the film even came out. They didn't have him for reshoots when they wanted to reshoot it because obviously, infamously, there's the two cuts. There's the producer's cut, which arguably is better, but like it's still not a good movie. Like I still will go against it.
It's weird that when people say that because I actually have never seen the producer's cut, but like something similar to that I feel like is the Daredevil movie. Like I've heard people be like, yeah, the movie sucks, but if you watch the director's cut, it's so much better. It's like, I mean, maybe a little bit better, but still really bad.
Yeah, like I would say it's a little bit better in the sense that it maybe makes it more of a coherent film because it's not cutting around whatever the original idea was, but it's still a terrible Halloween movie. It's still a terrible idea for what this franchise should be, and I despise it with every fiber of my being. I want no part of it.
And again, just going back to the original, which like it's just founded on like simplicity. Like it's just so simple, and that's what makes it so effective. And then to get to this point where there's so much like stuff trying to be like shoehorned in that it just it's really bad.
Yep. Don't have anything nice to say about it. Paul Rudd's in it. Maybe you'll enjoy that. That's all I got for you. What's your 31?
So this is a movie that I specifically remember when I first watched it because I had heard that this movie is intense. This movie is like one of those ones that had to be banned, that people would don't want you to watch, and it's legendary.
It's only a movie. It's only a movie. It's only a movie. It's only a movie. Not that I think you're actually going to see Last House on the Left, but it felt right to do that. It's only a movie.
Well, actually, I was right to say that because it is The Last House on the Left. This movie is awful. It is so bad. It's what? Don't tell me you actually like it.
I didn't say that. I didn't think I was going to be right.
Oh no.
It's just the way you were describing it's so this movie is so extreme and whatever. Like I started thinking about the advertising campaign for Last House on the Left, which is just the posters. It's only a movie. It's only a movie. I did not expect that to be the actual pick that you were going to give.
Well, no, you are dead on, but I mean that's like. And I think I saw this in high school, and like people are like, "Oh man, that movie!" And at the time, 1972, when it first came out, I'm sure it was extreme, but when I was watching like 2003, 2004, or whatever, it's like this movie is laughable. Like, especially the weird scenes like with the cops that
Oh
were
yeah.
like has this like comedic music going on, like and like there's like weird chicken lady laughing at him, and
Do you know
then
what I'll say, Tim? If you want a better version of this, it's got a very similar kind of story and like sort of two half kind of structure. There's an Italian film called Night Train Murders,
okay,
which I thought was a better handling of the same kind of material. But I mean,
okay.
so-
And like and yeah, so I think part of it is my expectations for it because I do think it is a bad movie, but maybe not necessarily the worst movie, but it has such a reputation and so much hype that going into it when I watched it, it just left such a sour taste in my mouth. Like this is the movie that you know how it is like when people like write articles now where they're like this movie's so scary people aren't able to finish it, they have to turn it off like halfway through, and then you watch it and you're like that's what you were talking about? Like, all right. Yeah. I
they
mean,
have to
I
turn it
love
off
Wes
halfway
Craven.
through.
I do love Wes Craven though, so as another reason I was excited to see it, and
Hey,
it let me down.
that's our second Wes Craven, just for the record. Just for the record. So he's got some shit in the tank, as it
Yeah.
were. What was that? That was 31. My number 31 is The Happening,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I like. That's I think this one hurts because it's kind of like this. It was this like punctuation on the idea that hey, Shyamalan, like, because I really like Shyamalan's first few movies. Like, I really like them. I think Unbreakable is a goddamn masterpiece. And I like Signs a lot. I don't even hate The Village. Some people hate The Village, but Lady in
I
the
like The
Water
Village.
was kind of a rough mixed bag. Like, there's some stuff in it I like, but for the most part, it was a really mixed bag. And The Happening was like, hey, the director you liked, you had all this like potential and promise with, he has went off the rails, and like maybe someday, we did eventually get back to him making a good movie. It's called Split, but like this was like a sign that for the next while he was going to be like just completely nonsensical, and we'd have no idea what he was doing. And this movie with Mark Wahlberg is terrible. It's people running from wind, and
Yeah.
I just I don't have words. I don't have words. Mark Wahlberg's terrible in it.
Mhm.
So much of it is just laughable.
Yeah. Sorry, like not to be mean, but he should never play like an academic
Oh, I know.
character.
See that shot where he's like looking around, like it's the wind.
Yeah.
He's trying to like show that he's thinking about something, he's figuring something out. It just looks silly. Oh no, no. Happening is happening. It's another embarrassing time. It's embarrassing watching that movie because you're like, wait, but you made Sixth Sense and Unbreakable. Like what?
Yeah.
What the hell? Those were really solid, well-made movies. Why is this all of a sudden just this really half-hearted schlock fest? I don't understand.
Yeah, no, it was tough, and I think I even probably like kind of stood up a little bit for Lady in the Water when it first came out, and then
Mm,
yeah, this was just one where there's like no defending.
no,
Like, ugh.
no. What's your 30?
So the next three that are on my list, I feel like kind of have maybe like similar thematic elements where like I kind of hate them all in the same way. They seem very similar.
Okay.
So I think you'll see when I say them. But number 30 is Wish Upon. Um,
Oh.
like again, just kind of going back to like when we talk about like stupid generic horror movies, this is kind of it. It's just it's a lot of jump scares. It's really stupid, thin premise, and the characters are laughable.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Tim. This one
Yeah,
gets a pass because of the last scene.
that last minute is or like last 10 seconds is very funny.
That
I'll
last one
give you
is
that.
very funny, and then also I do enjoy the flirting techniques that are in
With
this film.
yeah,
Are you into
I,
the multiverse? Because I'm really into the
yeah,
multiverse. Do you like multiverse
yeah.
theory?
that is. I actually do still quote that, which is kind of funny, but yeah, I mean, like, yeah, like some other movies on the list, like there are definitely stuff to laugh about, but as a whole, though, it is still like a super bad movie, and it's one of those kind of things that like makes me angry that like these are the kind of movies that are still being made, while
Hmm.
some of the other horror that we like just it doesn't get as much of a shake. But
Yep. Yep. My number 30 is a movie directed by David Goyer, and that is The Unborn,
Oh yes.
starring Gary Oldman. And I actually have to say that I delightfully do not remember any of this. But I remember how I felt after I watched it. I remembered that awful filter. I remembered feeling sad that Gary Oldman should get a new agent because this is Terabad. Why is he here? Um, Everything about it, just
Yeah, so this is different than I think there was a David Goyer movie where uh it was like a guy is kind of like a ghost who has to find out who murdered them or something.
yeah. It's not
Is
that.
that
No, it's not that.
okay? Well, this was the one that had
There's a
it had
pregnancy. There's like a pregnancy plot.
yeah, okay, yeah. I think I saw this in theaters. Jesus.
Oh god.
Uh yeah, real bad. But yeah, I guess David Goyer for some reason is the person that's going to be doing the new Hellraiser. So cool.
Does sound like hell, admittedly. I can't
Yeah.
deny that. It's raising my hell tingles.
Yeah. So my 29, and again, similar, kind of like my same feelings for Wish Upon, and that's a friend request. Again, just generic, nothing characters. I mentioned it before, but this is now this is like another one that has like an added internet element, which is like never good.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just annoying and stupid.
I'll do. We can.
Yeah,
We can
I
move
don't
on.
have much else to say
Yeah.
about it. It sucks.
My number 29, a very early review actually on Screams, which
Ooh.
should be scrapped from the record, uh, because those early episodes are terrible. But The Gallows
Oh,
is here at number
yeah.
29, and this this was just like every time I say I'm sick of found footage and found footage is overdone, I'm thinking about The Gallows. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about how that used it, and the stupid characters, just the bullshit way that it achieved its scares, like. And there's been good found footage movies since. There's been bad found footage movies since. We've had good and bad, but I feel like this is kind of the pinnacle of like, no, this is why there's too many of them because shit like this is being made. This is
Yeah.
not, and this is a Blumhouse movie, so you know, I'm looking at you, Jason. I'm looking at you, you prick.
Oh, it's a good segue into my 28 because 28 for me is also a Blumhouse movie. Now, if I just had Wish Upon and Friend Request, and then my next one's a Blumhouse movie, can you guess what it is?
Truth or dare?
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, like I feel like all three of these movies are just like they all just feel the same to me. Where it's just like interchangeable characters. There's nothing to it. It's generic. It's stupid. It's a dumb premise. And I think especially with Truth or Dare, like that whole face filter thing that they do, it's so stupid looking and it's not scary. And I don't know that they thought that would be a thing is dumb. And a similar ending to Rings also on the list, which is like I don't know, it's a very dumb big ending for some reason.
I'm sorry, I was doing my impression of the people in Truth or Dare.
I couldn't see it as much because I have my screen is little because I have my list up on the computer.
Well, that was lost on Tim then, but I'm sure people at home enjoyed my impression. What number are we on here, Timmy? Number 28.
So that's 28. Yeah.
Yeah. Number 28 is a repeat, because this is Annabelle, which is... I mean, we said it already, but like Annabelle is a movie that is not what it should be if you're going to make it. There was a glimmer of hope at the start that maybe the cult stuff might work, might play into it and be creepy. But no, it's your tropey generic thing where you've got the mother of the kid, like witnessing all the stuff. The dad doesn't believe her, thinks she's crazy. The priest gets involved. It goes through every single Norman building block of one of these movies where there's a ghost in the apartment or the house or whatever. And obviously it's a ghost that's after or a demon that's after the kid, but that's what it is. And yet the doll Billy plays a role in it. It's the whole thing. But there you go. That's Annabelle. What's your number
Then
27?
so yeah, I think I actually mentioned this on another review that you hadn't seen this movie, but oh boy, it's bad, and that is VHS Viral.
Oh yes. Mm.
Yeah, so I think like the VHS movies, I do like the idea of them, but I don't think they're the best anthology. But with the first two, there's like a couple of stories that you can pick out that are like, yeah, not a great movie, but oh, this one segment I really liked. I think especially like in yeah, VHS 2, I remember like that school segment being really really good, or like cult segment, whatever. But this one is just everything is so bad. Like the stories are really annoying. The wraparound is a really weird uh thing about like a uh like speed chase from an ice cream truck or something stupid like that. Um yeah, I just remember hating everything about this one. And again, like I was, somewhat forgiving on the first two. Like even though I don't think they're great, they didn't really bother me. This I was like mad when I watched it.
Yeah. I saw the first VHS. I don't really remember much about it. I remember a couple of segments maybe being okay, but I don't think I ever saw two. If I did, I've forgotten about it. I definitely never saw Viral though.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't done it on the show. That'll probably have to be something eventually, but
Oh,
yeah.
maybe I've been making sure we don't. What's my what's my number 27? My number 27 is The Woman in Black. Daniel
Oh yeah.
Radcliffe. Um, I this movie I saw in theaters, and I was just like, from the word go, he felt miscast.
Mhm.
All the scares felt random, and just, your typical like, oh, jump scare moment. And it felt like a movie that was just wanting to be a churned out, spooky house movie, as opposed to actually telling an interesting story about this spirit. Because I actually did the book for this in school, bizarrely. That's a really
Oh,
random one to
okay.
have read, but
Mhm.
we did it in school, and I remembered like the ending had way more bite in the book, and the ending of the movie just completely cops out and gives it this happy-ish ending. It's
Yeah.
just kind of like, okay, I guess that's it then. I found the whole thing. It felt like one of those movies where it was like, there's no reason for the ghost to be doing anything. It's just
Mhm.
doing random creepy stuff to be a random creepy moment in the movie, and
Yeah.
that was kind of rough. So, uh,
I remember being extremely bored by this.
oh yes,
Like I think I watched it eventually when it came on Netflix, and I don't even know if I made it all the way through.
yeah. I saw it in theaters, but hey, what's your number 26? Oh, final one, final
Uh,
big deal, Tim.
I'd be surprised if you've seen this one, because I had never heard about it, but I randomly came across it when I was at like a like record store. I was looking at their DVDs, and I was like, saw this. So it's called Evil Tunes, and that's a Toons, like cartoons.
Yeah, never heard of it.
So yeah, it's like a low budget, and the reason why I picked it up, it was like a $5 DVD or whatever, and they had like a like quote on the cover, and it said Evil Dead meets Roger Rabbit, which I was like, whoa, like this sounds pretty cool. So I'm a big animation fan. Like I love like animated stuff, and I've been really wanting like a cool animated horror movie. And basically it's kind of like about a demon infects this cartoon, who then like comes out into the real world, and it's like these girls in this house are being stalked by this cartoon killer,
Hmm.
which that sounds really cool. Like sign me the hell up for that movie. That like I would totally be into it. The problem is you probably see like 2 minutes of the cartoon in the movie. Like the rest of it is just like the creature possessing people and stuff. Like it's like it so is not like what it's promised, and then like it ends up like being really sleazy. Like it's you know um a bunch of like women are at this house. I forget why they're at the house, but it ends up being like a girly sleepover, and there's a lot of like like a pillow fight kind of stuff in it that's just like uh yeah, it kind of it feels like a little gross watching it. Dick Miller's in it though, so I will give him that. uh
Oh, I do like Dick Miller.
yeah, but I mean, Yeah, the reason why it's so low on the list, it's really a nothing movie, but I just put it so low because I had such high expectations when I heard what it was about, and um, yeah, watching it, it was just so like not delivering on what it's promised.
Yeah. I've never heard of it. Surprisingly, I don't know. This is never crossed my paths for some reason.
Yeah.
But my number 26, my last entry for this part, is The House at the End of the Street, which was a Jennifer Lawrence movie about 2011-ish, I want to say. And
Think I've seen this.
it's super
Think
forgettable.
yeah.
I remember just being like, it was like Jennifer Lawrence was pretty new and big at the time. It was like, okay, she'd just been done like one or two Hunger Games movies, and she'd been in Winter's Bone, and like here she's in a horror movie now. And I just remember that the whole thing revolves around her like having this weird like relationship with this guy who maybe lives at this house, but it's like, is he actually dangerous, or is there someone else dangerous in the house? Like the whole thing, like I just remember being kind of like more and more annoyed as the movie went on, to the point where by the time it got to the end, I'm like, this movie did nothing to actually engage me. It did nothing to I again, it's one of these movies I've forgotten most of it at this point.
Yeah.
I just remember being angry. I remember being angry about it when I
Yeah,
finished it.
no, that sounds familiar. Yeah, 'cause I'm pretty sure I've seen it, but I couldn't tell you nothing about it, which is, should tell you all you need to know.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, not a super passionate one to go out on, but there you go. That is our first half done of the top 50 worst movies top 50 worst horror movies of all time. At least from our perspective, based on what we've seen. So you can, of course, let us know what you think of our picks so far. If you've got your own list made up, so I know sometimes some of you do, maybe hold them back until part 2 when the end of the list is revealed. But you can, of course, get us on the Twitters at Streams Midnight. You can like and subscribe, ding the bell, make sure you get the notifications. You can, of course, get us on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to support us over there for as little as $1 per month. You get exclusive bonus episodes once per month of Streams After Midnight. You get 4 this month during the Octoberthon, but you always get 1 per month. And of course, you also get bonus episodes of other things. You get other things like voting at higher tiers. So go and have a look and see if you're interested in that stuff. Otherwise, you can rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever else. That helps us out a lot. But yeah, you can go do all that. But otherwise, you'll keep enjoying the Octoberthon. Look for more movie reviews coming every single day, and other countdowns. Of course, your personal top 50 horror movies. Because to balance this out, we're doing our top 50 worst horror movies, but you guys voted for your top 50 best horror movies, and the results of that will be coming soon. So look forward to that. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoying the Octoberthon. We're quite deep into it now. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.